I read an article about a month ago out of the Wall Street Journal about the self-storage industry. It was your typical doom and gloom about the self-storage space being overbuilt in today's market, but something really caught my eye in that article. It was a quote by an executive from Extra Space, one of the REITs. And the quote said that our ability to outperform the mom and pops has gotten bigger and bigger. This article, and what he was referring to, was the amount of new technology that these larger players are employing that gives them access to a lot of data analytics and SEO techniques that allow them to, quote, find and keep the customer. Hello, my name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and let's explore today how the small investor can compete in a world where the REITs have access to that type of technology. And what I do is I support small investors who want to get in the self-storage business or who want to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth and a fulfilling career. And the more I thought about what that guy said, I couldn't even sleep. He's right. The gap between how the larger operators operate and the smaller ones do is getting wider and wider. And the difference is just what they were talking about. The access to technology that gives these large players insights and using those technologies to make pricing decisions and expansion decisions. Literally, they can almost see in live time what all their competitors are doing in any given market. Plus their ability to show up online where more and more people are going to find self-storage. Now, through February, we talked a lot about some online marketing strategies. And very often what a lot of the REITs do is they just throw a boatload of money at pay per click, and you'll notice when you do self-storage searches, you'll always see them up at the top in the paid positions. Now we can do that, but it's hard to compete with somebody with that much money. And what happens is the more money going for any particular keyword phrase, the more expensive that keyword phrase is, and I'll guarantee you they can outspend you. So in my humble opinion, that's not the best strategy. It's not a bad strategy, but certainly not the best. That's why we talked about using the different direct marketing platforms, and we'll talk more about that in the future. But what I want to talk about today and start a conversation that's going to last a few episodes, I want to talk about this data analytic thing that they were referring to. I really think that is the key that will allow this smaller investor to operate very strategically in the future once they put their facilities into service, and allow you to compete head on with the larger players and not lose your market share. Now, before we get into the details on it, I really want to talk about mindset here. You've heard me say many times that 80%, if not more, of all success is your mindset, how you relate to the business, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to success, and 20% or less is knowing what to do. And that's never been more critical than in this conversation here. You know, the self-storage industry tends to attract very independent people who want to kind of go on their own and create something for themselves, become self-employed, but not just self-employed, to have their own little business and kingdom that they can run and have control over, and will give them this financial security that they're after. In many ways, getting in the self-storage business reminds me of the homesteaders going out west in the 1800s, where they were going to go out west, get their piece of land and work that piece of land and make a living on it for their family. Many of the people I work with, and myself included, that's kind of what attracted me to this business. It was an industry and a business that I had some skill set in, but I could carve my own niche out in this world and work our facilities and make a good living for myself and my family. However, if we're going to continue this analogy, if you really want to get a little more accurate picture of what it would be like. It would be like the homesteaders going out and homesteading and then having to compete with the factory farms. We're having to compete with the REITs. And they are right. That article is correct. The gap between what the big players do and what the small players are doing is growing wider and wider every day. So for us to stay relevant, we've got to learn new things. We've got to learn new ways of making decisions. We've got to learn new ways of doing business. Now, I'm not trying to scare you out of the business. In fact, I think once we get our arms around this, we will be able to compete more effectively and out-storage the big storage players. Why? Well, because we're small. We can make decisions fast. We can turn on a dime. We're not a publicly traded company that has to produce big results at the end of every quarter to keep our stock value up. We're able to move on a dime and make the decisions necessary in the moment in order to be successful. Very often the large players can't do that. So if you approach this right, what you're going to get is the competitive edge that will allow you to succeed and outperform the larger players. That's what I think is possible out of this conversation. Now, I know I can be an extremist sometimes. My wife tells me that, and I have discovered that usually my wife is correct. And as I record this, I'm getting ready to go onto a plane and fly out to California and go to a convention of online marketers and people in the SEO and digital advertising business. Why? Well, because I want to see what they do in other industries and then translate that onto self-storage. But I'm using that as an example of the mindset I think that's required in today's self-storage world. To be able to expand your thinking and always be learning. Again, I'm going to talk about this mindset. Very often, what happens is we get into business, we begin to have some success, and then we know what to do. We know how to run a business. We know how to bring a facility online. Why? Well, we've done it, and we've done it successfully. But I'm really learning that if we don't have what the Buddhists call a beginner's mind, that's the beginning of the downfall for many of us. Why? Well, because when you know a lot, there's not a lot of room to learn new things. And when you're a beginner, you just soak up all kinds of knowledge. So my invitation is, in these next few conversations and episodes we're going to have, let's approach it with a beginner's mindset, where we can really begin to soak up new information and consider new ways of running our self-storage company, so we can stay relevant as this industry matures. So over the next few episodes, we're going to look at specifically how the small investor can use, quote, data analytics to know what's going on in your submarket and adjust what you're doing even on a daily basis if you need to. Now, I'm not talking about demand pricing where you're changing your prices each and every day, although you literally could do that with the type of technology we're talking about. That's what the REITs do. But more importantly, you will know and be able to explain to your managers or know on a day-to-day basis what you need to say when someone either emails or phone calls in wanting to know how much a 10 by 10 is. You'll know exactly what they're going to find in your market that day and know how to get them into your facility. Because we all know once you get someone to come into your facility, 95 times out of 100, they leave your facility with a lease in their hand. The other thing we're going to talk about is how to use this data analytics to do a new type of value-added pricing, upgrading. We'll talk more about that. That's a way to increase your cash flow with your existing pricing on your unit mix. It works great as you bring a new product online. We'll talk about that. And then the last thing we'll talk about in this series is demand pricing itself. How you can compete with it if you don't want to use it, and then do you want to use it is now the time. So we'll cover all of these. And again, the reason is so that as this industry industry evolves, we can stay relevant and competitive. Because I promise you, if you're not dealing with it now, you soon will be dealing with new space coming online, competing with you, and you will have the same number of move-outs, but your move-ins will slow down if you're competing with somebody who is in a lease-up mode, and especially if that somebody is one of the REITs that we're talking about. So what I'd like for you to do is come back to the next episode knowing what the competition is doing in your submarket. What are the pricing? How do you compare on the pricing? What are their specials? What are they offering? And where do you stand in your submarket? Are you at the top, the bottom, or the middle? If you don't know that, bring that to the next episode, because we're going to do some work with that. So I look forward to being with you as we explore this new world of self-storage, and I'll be with you next week as we start talking about how to use, specifically, how to use data analytics in your self-storage business. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. Now, that's not a data analytic tool, but that certainly is a cloud-based financial analysis tool that is similar to what many of the REITs use. They all have their own proprietary systems. You can have your own proprietary system yourself, where you don't have to just use Excel. If you think you would be interested in exploring how we and many other small investors project future cash flows on projects they're looking at, go to creatingwealththroughselfstorage.com and explore the Storage World Analyzer, or go to storageworldanalyzer.com. Another tool that will allow you to compete successfully with the larger players. And I look forward to being with you next week as we discuss data analytics for the small investor. See you then.